relating with others is both a technical process and an art form. While we all share this experience of life together, each of us has developed our own unique worldview based on our own individual experiences. It's important that we recognize this observation. For example, let's say some organization were to make claims such as the following: we can end all war and drop around 95% of all crime. Money and inequality are the underlying sources of nearly all of humanity's problems. We could eliminate 75% of all jobs tomorrow, and it would actually be a good thing. We can end world hunger, and with modern technology, we can provide for the varying needs of every human being on the entire planet. Now, these seem like fairly logical claims to those of us who've actually researched these issues, but unfortunately, to a large percentage of the world's population, these claims sound absolutely ridiculous. Many still believe that they've already figured out how the world works and how society operates, not recognizing that we live not in an established reality, but an emergent reality where change and evolution are constant. So when someone's presented with new information, if that information isn't in line with what that person has supposedly already figured out, then that individual is going to be put in a position where he or she has to either accept, ignore, or resist that new information. That's not a very comfortable position for a lot of people to be in. As many of us are well aware, people can often react very irrationally when put in a situation that requires them to question their worldview and subsequently their identity. This is a communication issue, and we should attempt to resolve it. When we as activists reach out to people and they actually embrace new information, we're usually very pleased and feel a sense of connection and solidarity with those individuals. However, when we encounter those who either resist or ignore new information, we often act more unpredictably. As many of us already know, there is no they, there is only us. I believe it can often be counterproductive to simply try and shock or jolt others into supporting meaningful change. In my 5 years that I've spent teaching music, I've learned that there is no one-size-fits-all path when it comes to education. I believe there is an absorption process that is different for each individual. While some people can be shocked into supporting change, others will require greater care, patience, and guidance. Targeted marketing is a strategy used in the advertising business which attempts to relate a certain product or service with specific groups or demographics of people. The concept I'm about to discuss, which I'm calling targeted education, functions essentially the same way, except the only difference is that unlike advertising, our motive is simply to spread free information and awareness, not make a profit. This section will showcase a few examples of the broad possibilities of targeted education. Unlike geopolitics or economics, almost everyone can relate to, say, a car or an automobile. A large percentage of the population deals with cars, trucks, and buses in some form or another on a daily basis. Many of the things relating to automobiles that people are forced to deal with may include traffic congestion, accidents, road rage, traffic signals, ownership, waste and pollution, energy, servicing, etc. There are enough topics related to the outdated concept of the automobile that we could easily put together an entire documentary based on this topic alone. And perhaps we should. Or, if not a documentary, how about something which is much easier and far less time-consuming to produce, such as a brochure or a website? Let's imagine that we put together a brochure which describes the very real and relatable inefficiencies of automobiles and traffic. The purpose of this brochure would be to simply provide free education which includes analysis of specific problems, explanations of why these problems exist, and potential solutions. without the dramatic use of too many big words or big claims. So, okay, let's say we've created this educational brochure with content that doesn't scare anybody off, or at least minimizes the potential to do so. So it seems logical then to ask, well, if it doesn't mention an organization or a movement, what's the point? Somewhere in the brochure, it'll say something along the lines of, if you'd like more information, please visit us on the web at www.funfactsaboutotomobiles.com or something like that. This website will contain the same information as the brochure, along with supplemental information and media. Now, this automobiles website would either include a section or perhaps subsections called organizations or solutions or something like that. This section or these sections could provide a brief description of how specific organizations propose to solve particular problems. Links to the organization's respective website would be provided as well. The theory here is that if we can present information that is understandable, relatable, and doesn't scare anyone off, we're more likely to have people invest time into contemplating relevant data. If people invest time and find our understandings to be somewhat logical, it seems reasonable to assume that these people will then be more open to hearing more of what we have to say. Simultaneously, this automobile site would also function as a sort of sub-site of a larger central website, which would contain links to other sub-sites geared towards specific topics. The possibilities for additional topics and any corresponding content are nearly limitless. Here are just a few examples of possible topics or subtopics: transportation, engineering, charity, politics, veterans, suicide, the legal system, depression, violence, academia. We would also provide information on specific economic topics such as fractional reserve banking, cyclical consumption, interest, the Great Depression, the Great Recession, taxes, technological unemployment, money in exchange, the stock market. Once again, the possibilities are nearly limitless. Targeted education can provide us with additional tools to supplement our existing tools. Having a central website which contains easy to understand, accurate, and relatively non-identity threatening information would help us reach out to organizations and individuals who have common or similar goals. This site would also create a new organizational front with a public agenda of merely promoting a common understanding of present-day knowledge. As many of us already know, there are countless well-intentioned and passionate activist movements with large numbers of people throughout the world. Environmentalists, for instance, are well aware that our environment is in big trouble, yet they lack the necessary understanding of the root causes. So what we can do is provide a brochure and a website describing the root causes in an easy-to-digest manner. Like the subject of automobiles, a pointless or obsolete jobs brochure could be distributed to almost everybody. We could give these to sales associates in a mall, we could give these to waitresses, we could give these to bank tellers, etc. The central website and all subsites would be made available to the general public to function essentially as an online encyclopedia of relevant topics. Unfortunately, I can't develop or manage this project on my own, and I wouldn't even attempt to. There are simply too many topics that need to be covered and way too many variables that need to be considered if this idea were to be implemented with peak efficiency in mind. This section outlines a virtual blueprint for the concept. The design is not final, and I welcome all constructive criticism and suggestions. Each subsite and any subsequent corresponding materials would be designed with a specific intent and achievable goal in mind. General awareness. This will be the main goal of all topics and content, and should be emphasized throughout the entire site. The goal of mass awareness is absolutely vital to promoting common understandings. Alliance building. For example, we share common goals with many different groups, including environmentalists, charity organizations, the liberty movement, progressives, and more. Content created with the goal of alliance building would cater to the common goals and values that we share with a particular group, while still staying true to our values and understandings. Policy influence. This goal would simply be to reach out to those in positions of power or influence. Information consistency. All content must be consistent with the information and understandings of all subsites. The website is ultimately useless unless it promotes a holistic understanding. All new content would have to be in complete alignment with the technical, economic, and social understandings provided in the other subsites. Psychological considerations. The writing and flow of information in each subsite and corresponding media would be uniquely tailored toward achieving its specified goal. No public affiliations. Content should not contain the names of any organization or individuals except in solutions or organization sections. Wiki-style linking. If a topic is referenced and there is a common subsite that exists, a link to that subsite would be embedded into the text. Content consolidation. Content should be as organized and focused as possible, while still providing an adequate amount of information to reach the subsite's goal. Media downloads. Each subsite would have a corresponding printable brochure for activists. In addition, links to downloads for any other type of corresponding media, such as artwork, music, or videos, would be made available for easy redistribution. Social network sharing. All pages would provide links for sharing via popular social network sites. There are likely additional considerations that would need to be accounted for here as well. In order for this project to be implemented effectively, it would require a large degree of cooperation between many people. Management team. This team would be in charge of managing the general direction of upgrade theory. Their responsibilities would include determining organization, design standards, publishing, implementation, content goals, content criteria, and they would also be in charge of developing, it's essentially the hierarchical categorization of data and information. Members of this team would also be able to work directly inside of any other team as well. Content production team. This team would be in charge of doing research and obtaining and providing written and visual content. A content director or directors would have to verify that the content matches our criteria before submitting it to the review team. Content review team. This team would check the content for accuracy and consistency. If the team does not agree on the quality of the content, they will send it back to the content production team along with suggestions. If approved, the review team would then submit the content to the management team for publishing. Analysis team. This team would monitor visitor statistics of each subsite. In addition, this team would compare these web statistics to the physical efforts of activists. Activists would then be encouraged to file activism reports through the central site, where they would be required to input which types of media were distributed, which targeted education topic was promoted, along with who the media was distributed to, when and where it was distributed, and how many pieces were distributed. Anything from passing out brochures or DVDs to people in public to sending out an email with a link to a subsite would count as activism. This information could be recorded with a simple online form. The analysis team would then be given the task of finding trends which would attempt to find correlations between the effectiveness of our tools and the effectiveness of our activism. I believe that if these ideas were to be effectively implemented and on a large enough scale, we could drastically speed up the process of bringing mass awareness to people in regard to alternatives to our current monetary-based economy.